Good evening, everyone. Just going to do a quick mic check to make sure. Can one of other panelists let me know if we're live and people can hear me? Okay, just a thumbs up. Awesome, thank you. Uh, good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Lyons. I'm the principal at Carmel High School, and welcome to our question and answer session in regards to our opening of the school year. We've got a lot of questions we're hoping to answer for you tonight. A lot of information we want to send your way. And there is a process that we're going to go through tonight. Many of you submitted questions in advance, and that helped us a lot in framing this conversation. So hopefully we're able to give you all of the information that you need. There will be an opportunity for live questions at the end of this process, and that'll be done through raising your hand on the chat function. There's a little button that says raise your hand. You can raise your hand and then you'll be called on by our staff as we're working through this. So first off, a couple of quick thank yous to some folks who are helping us out tonight. A special thanks to Rob Perry out of the technology office, who's guiding us through this new frontier of online meetings and getting everything set up. And also to Lisa Brazil, who's our principal secretary and the real woman of power at Carmel High School. And she's going to help tonight running the show, along with Trissa Zarovich, who is out of the superintendent's office, and Michelle Mahaney out of the curriculum and instructional office. So thank you to all of them for taking extra time tonight to help us out. Two other folks you're going to hear from tonight would be Debbi Puente, who is one of our assistant principals, and Craig Tuana, who is our other assistant principal. And if you're new to Carmel High School, if you're a new parent coming to us from the middle school or coming to from a private school, the three of us really work as one body. So it's really important to note at the high school level how important the assistant principals can be in your conduit to get information. I think a lot of times as you move up the ladder, it becomes harder and harder to get information, particularly at the high school level, because there's so many bodies involved. And having the assistant principals are a key component of what we do. And as we go through tonight, they'll be making some commentary on our plan as well. So our order of operations for tonight is we're going to do a presentation that will take a lot from the guidebook that we emailed out on Monday. That it kind of condenses this down, hopefully, into some easier to understand points. There's a lot of things that we've been considering over the summer, a lot of things we've been working on. And so this presentation is a companion to that guidebook. And I'll be referring a lot back to that handout that we emailed out, which is also posted at the school's website. If you didn't get that for whatever reason, everything we're doing moving forward in our remote schooling environment is going to be posted on our school's website as our dominant method of communication. So I'm going to share a presentation with you this evening. And like I said, we're going to go through, didn't mean to do that, wrong button. And as we go through this presentation, I think it's really important to note that we are trying to answer a lot of very difficult questions. And I just want to verify again, if I can get a thumbs up from somebody on the other side, that the presentation is up online, everybody can see it. Okay, awesome. So this summer has been a summer unlike any other in terms of how we prep and plan a school year, how we get ourselves ready, because there's just been so many unanswerable questions and so many things that have changed since we left campus on March 13th. And things we've tried to answer along the way are both to look at the experience of what happened in the spring and also prepare for what may be coming down the road. So there's going to be a number of different parts to this conversation. So tonight, we're going to look at kind of 5 different things. We're going to talk a little bit about what are the new rules, what are the summer legislation that's gone into effect to kind of guide our discussion. What's going to be the model for the remote schooling, which is what we're going to start our context in. How will that transition then to a hybrid instruction model if we're allowed to have access back on campus? And then finally, what's the opening of school going to look like? What is the first week or so going to look like? And how are we going to bring kids into the fold of the culture of our campus. And then, like I said, we're going to end with some time for some questions and answers. So let's talk a little bit about the background and legislation of how we've arrived at where we've arrived. So as many people know, in March, when we were put in shelter in place by Monterey County Health Department, we didn't have a lot of time to figure out how to address all of those issues. And we've really used from March 13th on as a guidepost for what we can do to improve the education for students, but also try to address this new reality we find ourselves in. And so the Monterey County Office of Education asked every district, and then by extension every school site, to develop a comprehensive plan for the safe opening of school. And in this plan, we needed to outline how we were going to address all of these various issues for different scenarios, depending on how many kids we were allowed to have on campus. So how, as an example, what are going to be what are the required PPE uses for staff and for students if we are in a model where kids are on campus, or we're in a model where some kids are on campus, or if it's just staff on campus? What are the attendance procedures? What are the plans for notifying parents if there's a positive test, or notifying folks if we're having to shut back down because we have an outbreak of COVID on our campus? What are the engagement processes for families to get information? What's our instructional model, which is a big part of our conversation tonight, obviously. And then also, how do we communicate out changes in policy and changes in practice? So we were asked to develop a plan, and it's linked in this presentation. So if you want to refer to it later, if you're interested in the absolute specifics, everything here is broken down by subject or by subheading. So you can click on it and get a more detailed understanding of how we're addressing those particular issues. We were asked basically to look for 3 different scenarios. A low risk model, and when we say risk, it means risk of students getting infected. And so when we say low risk, what is the model that would have the lowest possibility for students to get sick? And that would be a full remote schooling model. Medium risk is a hybrid instructional model where some students are on campus and some students aren't on a daily basis. And a higher risk model where all students would be on campus with effective social distancing. About a month ago, the governor of California came out and said that all schools in California, if they are on the county watch list, would have to begin in a remote environment. And that encompasses 32 counties in California, of which Monterey is one. So we're under the mandate of the state of California to open in a full remote schooling model. The governing board for the COSD has asked us in October, at the end of our first quarter mark, to assess if we will, based on the data that's provided to us by Monterey County Health Department, and if we are off the watch list at that point, to potentially then re-engage in a hybrid instruction model. So we won't be moving off of remote schooling until the quarter mark at the earliest. And in a little bit later in the presentation, I'll talk about what are the markers that we're trying to keep track of that would eventually take us off the watch list. But our situation is dictated by the county. It is not a Carmel conversation. It is a Monterey County conversation. Additionally, over the summer, the state of California legislature passed a Senate Bill 98, which outlined for schools what is the expectation for a new remote schooling or distance learning environment. And in that bill, or in that law now, because it was signed as part of the package, is that we are to be in distance learning if we are in a shelter in place situation, or in this case on the watch list, or we may have a shelter in place student if that student is medically at risk. And so when we get to the hybridized conversation, we'll talk more about the nuances there. In the distance learning model, we must provide appropriate access to curriculum. We have to have content aligned to grade level standards. We can't abandon education consistent practice just because we're in a remote learning model. The expectation is that if your child is taking 10th grade English, that will be content aligned to what they would normally take in high school. The requirements of SB 98 say that we are to have daily live interaction, or students are rather, with certificated employees and peers for the purposes of instruction, progress monitoring, and maintaining school connectedness. So in most cases, that means internet communication. In some cases, that may mean telephone, or packet delivery. But for the bulk of our students, this will mean the delivery method will be through live instruction, through Zoom, or through a connection through the computer. We are also required to document daily participation for each pupil each day. So we are required by law to take attendance on our students every day, and we'll talk about how that works. We are to provide evidence of participation in online activities, completion of regular assignments, completion of assessments, and contact between employees of the LEA. So basically what that means is that information must be accessible to students at all times for the consistency of schooling. And we must have a weekly engagement record, which in the high school world would be maintaining our grade book. So those are the rules that were put in place for us. So we talked that we're beginning the model in a remote schooling fashion, which means that learning will take place exclusively through the internet and through home environment, that students are not allowed to be on campus for safety reasons. We've spent a fair amount of time looking at what the spring was and how is that going to be different now we move into this new world. And I'm going to borrow a phrase from one of our staff members, Barb McBride, who said that really spring was more about crisis learning. We were all in a moment of crisis. We were all in an experience where we didn't know what was going on. We were learning new information day to day. We're now looking at this more as a remote schooling experience, that how do we model school behavior even though the delivery mechanism may have changed. So what does that mean? It means for the high school purposes, there will be a consistent bell schedule or consistent times that classes will meet. And we'll talk about what that looks like. We'll have a single-use platform for all information. Our staff has gone through the summer, trained on Google Classroom, and every staff member will have a Google Classroom page, and that's where all of their assignments, all of their material will be placed. So it's one place that students have to go to get that information. It's a universal platform. We are requiring of our teachers that 33% or a third of their instructional time be done in a live format via Zoom. And so in a 90-minute class period, at least 30 minutes of that is to be live instruction. And so a student would log on to the meeting, and they would go through and have a regular class session just like they would if they were sitting in room 25. Just the difference being is that we're all sitting in our homes instead. It doesn't necessarily have to be at the very beginning of every period, but the teacher will identify where the 30 minutes is best served in the nature of the instructional practice for that time period. We've used Moodle for a long time as a part of our platform. We will continue to use Moodle as our assessment platform to push tests out and things like that, and it will be a companion to Google Classroom. As I said before, and I think this is one of the big points I'm hoping to hammer home tonight, is we will be taking attendance for each class. If your child does not log in and is not present during a Zoom session, they will be marked absent, and you'll receive a phone call from us just like you would if they didn't show up to second period geometry or integrated math 2. Teachers will have the option to work from their classroom or as home as needed. We recognized in the spring how difficult it was for our teaching staff to not have access to their materials, have access to their classrooms. Teachers will be able to work on site if they are able to and they are comfortable with that, with the right health protocols and things of that nature. But we want teachers to have the right access to the right materials. So you may see a lot of teachers working from the campus, and you may see some who work from home, like I am tonight, because of our own personal situations we may find ourselves in. We will be increasing our student check-ins for school connectedness, and we'll talk about what this new advocacy program is in more detail. But we wanted to really reach a point where we had a coordinated approach to engaging with students and connecting them to the larger school campus. We'll post graded assignments in Aries every 2 weeks for parents and students to have a clear knowledge of their progress. So I know that sometimes gradebooks don't always stay up to date. We're really pushing to make sure our gradebooks are consistent and up to date, so you know as parents and as students what's going on in that class. The high school schedule that we left with in the spring is the schedule we will open with in the fall. All courses are being offered. Some of those courses are going to look very, very different. Some of our elective courses, some of our visual and performing arts, those teachers have been working tirelessly all summer to get us to a point where they can do what they believe to be high quality instruction in a digital environment. That may look a little different than what kids are used to, but right now the intention is to run every single class we ran in the spring, we're going to run in the fall. Students will be given the opportunity to go do schedule changes just like they would during a regular school year during the first 3 weeks of school. That if they want to make a change because that class is no longer what they thought it was going to be, they'll have the opportunity to make those changes. Our counseling team will be doing set office hours for students throughout the week. So they will be available to help with academic and school connectedness support. And we'll also be pushing in to our advocacy classes to help deliver academic support. So our counseling component is definitely going to be, again, a coordinated approach to reach students to the best of our ability. Sorry, I made a mistake and I need to fix it now. So let's talk a little bit about what the weekly schedule is going to look like. So Monday through Thursday is the academic day, and the academic day begins at 8:30 in the morning with period 1 or period 4. We're going to go to a block schedule model where there is 90-minute classes with a 15-minute break in between periods 1 and 2 or periods 4 and 5, a lunch break, and then another 1 or 2 classes depending on the day. So the student academic day on Monday would run 8:30 to 1:45, and it would encompass 3 periods. On Tuesday, their academic day would run 8:30 to 3:30 with 4 academic courses. And it would follow in the same fashion that they would if we were running a normal brick and mortar school, where they would just go to class and they would do the work during that period. With this schedule, and like I said, because attendance is taken, you will know if a student is maintaining their engagement. And so one of the challenges I know that we're all going to face come August 13th, when our first day of live classes is going to happen, is, and I've got 2 incoming 9th graders coming, so I feel your pain, parents. We've got to get kids used to the idea of getting up out of bed at 8:30 in the morning and getting to class, because that's when school is going to begin. And again, attendance is going to be taken. Our Friday experience is going to be slightly different. We are launching a new program as part of this package of remote learning, remote schooling, called Advocacy. And advocacy is really about building those connections for students and giving them an opportunity to connect not only with teachers, but with each other. Because the thing that is so desperately missing in this environment is those common times that students can talk to each other. We don't have coordinated lunch blocks where everybody can sit in the amphitheater, or passing periods, or times after school where we can all sit in the bleachers and just chat. So we have to find time for that to happen as well. So on Fridays, a student will be assigned to an advocacy meeting once a week on Friday based on one of their 7 teachers. So as part of the schedule that you'll get when we release schedules next week, you'll see your regular academic schedule, and then you'll have another class that's advocacy that will meet on Fridays. So I'm going to use my children as an example a lot because they're currently going to be 9th graders. So my 2 9th grade boys would have their advocacy class at 8:30 in the morning. And then the remainder of the day is for them to use to access their teachers for office hours. And again, we'll talk about what office hours means in this new environment and how it's different from what we've done in the past. But a student, in order to gain attendance on Friday, must attend 1 advocacy course that they are assigned and 1 office hours. They must log into an office, one of their office hours. They can go to more if they want, but they have to go to at least 1. Let's talk about our advocacy program, because we're actually really excited about this, and we think this is going to really be an interesting opportunity to redefine how we interact with students. The mission of the Carmel High School Advocacy Program is to promote meaningful relationships between our staff and students while providing them some academic support. Through meetings with their faculty advocate, students will experience a more personalized learning environment with a structure and set of practices for monitoring and encouraging academic process and college and career readiness. So every Friday, they're going to have these advocacies cohorts that are going to be organized around one of their 7 teachers. And it really is about building connections. Those advocate teachers are going to do things, just do basic check-ins. Just check to make sure that they're getting all the academic access they need. Do you have your access to Google Classroom? Are you doing okay with all that? Is your Chromebook working? What happens if you don't get your Chromebook working? And also, try to build those over time, those relationships with students about how are things going, how are you doing, and also give kids a chance to talk to each other and interact with each other in less a stressful environment than what you're probably going to see in a period 3 class on Wednesday. So the role of the faculty advocate is to help students navigate a bureaucracy that no longer really is tethered to one place. If you're a parent of an older student, it's very easy to say to a student, well, where do you go to get this? Well, they all know where to go because they know where the building is. But in a world where we don't have buildings, helping kids figure out how to get an appointment with a counselor, how to get in to a college application workshop, how to check in with another teacher, how to get their Chromebook fixed, or get a piece of technology that they need for a video class. That's going to be kind of the advocate to help tie all those loose ends together for the week. For the students, it's about how do we build engagement. We have a whole group of kids, over 200 of them, who are coming to Carmel High School who know nothing about our campus because they were never able to set foot on it. And that's our current incoming freshmen. So working in concert with our Link crew, really building programs at the 9th grade to bring connections to the larger community and also build connections with each other. So we want to make sure through advocacy that we're really giving a lot of that academic, but also that kind of connection support. This will also be where counselors will come in to do coordinated things with particularly our seniors, to do college application workshops, financial aid workshops, scholarship materials. We're going to push a lot of things into that advocacy window because through Monday through Thursday, we are so locked in with that academic time that Friday's going to really be about the other stuff that makes high school so important. The analogy I keep using, or the language I keep using with a lot of others, is if Monday through Thursday is about the head, Friday is about the heart and soul. And we need to make sure that students still have that. In addition to advocacy on Fridays, students will have the opportunity to do office hours. So on Fridays, each teacher will offer 2 60-minute sessions to their students for the purposes of supporting student learning. So if you remember that schedule, in the 4 blocks of time, a teacher would have 1 advocacy class and 2 blocks of office hours and 1 block for prep to be able to review the week with their colleagues. They will set for us before school starts their calendar of when their office hours sections are going to be. And we're going to publicize that so that students and parents know when this teacher is available at what time. So students can go in. And again, students must attend their advocacy and 1 office hours section every Friday to ensure that they gain attendance. And obviously attendance is going to be a big component of how we measure engagement for students. Teachers are going to submit their attendance, and that's how we're going to track them. In office hours, this is when students can clarify and ask questions about the course content, get study ideas, ask questions about the syllabus or upcoming assignments and various due dates, review exams or papers, talk about their grades, and also begin the process of kind of reteaching or support if they need it in terms of working through practice material. The office hours can also be something that is assigned to a student who starts to struggle in a class as a form of intervention. So if a student begins to fall behind in Integrated Math 1, the Integrated Math 1 teacher may say to that student, I am requiring you to attend office hours. And that's something that we will run through our student study team process through intervention. If a student needs help, we will assign them to an office hours and take away the flexibility by giving them that assigned time. We have gotten a lot of questions about athletics, a lot of questions, and I'm hoping to give you as much information as I can in regards to athletics. So here we go. Deep breath. The CIF state, who organizes all of the sports, made a determination that rather than having 3 seasons of sports, they were going to go to 2. We're calling them winter and spring, but in most language, it's season 1 and season 2. Right now, the tentative start time on athletics for the winter season or season 1 would be in December, and the tentative beginning for spring sports would be in March. As part of the winter season, we're talking about boys and girls volleyball, boys and girls water polo, cross country, football, field hockey, skiing and snowboarding. Gymnastics, we don't offer those programs, but those sports would all meet in the season 1. Season 2 is packed. Season 2 has badminton, which we don't offer, soccer, swimming and diving, tennis boys and girls, wrestling, basketball, golf boys and girls, baseball, softball, track and field, and lacrosse. The CCS, the overarching body that is in this area, the Central Coast section, and the Pacific Coast Athletic League are now in the process of working off of these timelines provided to us by the state to see how we can best make available athletics for the foreseeable future. I have to stop and say that this is all based on us being able to bring students onto campus in even a hybridized model. If we are in remote schooling at the time that it is time to begin sports, we will not be participating because we would not have access to the facility for students. And at this time, as we stand right now in our remote environment, we do not have access to our campus. We are all hoping and praying that we will get to a place where we can hybridize our learning environment and athletics can begin. Tentatively, practices for season 1 would begin around December 14th. There is a lot of conversation. One of the problems we have with the Pacific Coast Athletic League is we split multiple counties. So it is entirely possible that Monterey County could fall off the watch list and be able to go hybrid while Santa Clara County is not. And at that time, we would have to make some determinations about what we could offer competitively for all of the schools who could. So it may mean some on-the-fly canceling of games or re-leaguing. And I think if you're a baseball fan like me, you're watching what's happening in Florida with the Miami Marlins baseball team, and all of a sudden wondering, how do you do that whole behemoth? So and they have all the testing they need in the world. We do not. So we want to make sure, again, that we are putting student safety and staff safety at the paramount of our conversation. But we are all hoping that as the year goes along, we will get a better handle on all of this, and we'll have sports occur in the winter and spring. Mr. Anderson, our athletic director, is working with our coaches to develop virtual programs or meet and greets for students. And once the school year begins, coaches will start reaching out to current students who were playing those sports, and also opening it up for new incoming students who are interested in those sports as a way to get a part of the team building aspect going. So our coaches are very excited to get involved with that. In fact, tonight, right now, our athletic leadership council is meeting to talk about what are they going to do as athletes to keep the fires burning for students and look towards December. We had a whole group of students in the spring who got caught in the middle of something. Our spring athletes traditionally, especially freshman athletes, but our freshman athletes traditionally get pulled out of PE and brought into a study hall program. And through that process and through the physical fitness test, they meet their PE requirement. Well, those students didn't participate, and we weren't able to put them back into PE. So what we are working towards now is that if a student in the class of 2023, last year's 9th graders, current 10th graders, we're in that spring conundrum. If they participate in sports this year, we will basically back credit them. So if you were a baseball player or supposed to be a baseball player your freshman year, and you go and play baseball again your sophomore year, then you're going to get that PE requirement met. We will not give credit because we wouldn't have gotten credit anyway for the study hall, but you would at least get the requirement. There may be some who say, well, what am I don't want to do a sport. I want to do it last year, but I'm not going to do it this year. Those situations we'll work through individually on a case-by-case basis with those students about an alternative method to meet that requirement. One of the other problems we're running into is that the physical fitness test is still in limbo, which has been the marker we've used as the way to identify students gaining credit or gaining the requirement. We're still awaiting if the state is going to offer that or not. But what they did waive in PE is the 400 minutes per 2 weeks requirement. So PE is one of those areas that's going to look real different from what we did in the spring. But I'm very excited. I've had a number of conversations with both Mrs. French, who's the department chair, and our new PE teacher, Mr. Johnston, Phil Johnston. And they're very excited about what they plan to do, not only for PE, but also in the weight fitness world, in the weight training and fitness world. I know that Ms. Tarosi has talked a lot about how she wants to think about yoga. So there's a lot of exciting things going on for those programs as well. I'm trying to move my way through this presentation to give you as much time as I can. So for questions, so please bear with me if I'm talking a little bit quicker than I would normally. At some point, we hope to go to a hybrid model, and we hope that that will come sooner than later, not because we don't have confidence in our remote schooling plan, but because ideally we just want kids on campus. We want to see them. We want to interact with them. We want to bring normalcy back to their lives. One of the challenges that we've had over the summer with a hybrid model is that our class sizes, as you can see in this picture, are limited to 12 to 15 kids per class, which required us to do a lot of reworking to the master schedule. As it stands right now, if a student requested a class in the spring, we honored those requests for the fall. No student was removed from a class because of the size of a class at this moment. Where that could change is the district is trying to coordinate it so that if you have students at multiple sites, you have a high schooler like me, I have 2 high schoolers and an elementary student, matching it up so that they're all on the same days of instruction in the hybrid model. That may necessitate some schedule changing. So a student who is now currently starting the year in period 3 econ may, when we go to hybrid, have to move to period 5 econ because the numbers may not work in terms of how many kids we can put in that classroom, which may mean some choices have to be made. But for the most part right now, we are offering a full slate of courses because we want kids to have a full and rich experience at the high school. This is putting a lot of pressure on our teachers to learn about a flipped classroom model. We're also trying to ensure that we in-service and do a lot of professional development around classroom management, because with half the students in the classroom and half the students at home, you can imagine that that brings about new challenges. So that's going to be one thing that we're really going to spend a lot of time on, in addition to assessing our remote schooling, is how do we prepare for the hybrid model moving forward. The rules don't change as it relates to hybrid instruction about interaction. Even students at home should be receiving live interaction with their staff members, with their faculty members every day. And so we're taking steps to ensure that we have that. We're obviously concerned if we bring kids onto campus about social distancing, about making sure kids stay safe. So we've done some augmenting to the schedule regarding fewer breaks and really no common areas, things like the cafeteria, the library. Those things are going to be shut down. We'll push a lot of things to the outdoor venues. We are uniquely blessed here in this area to have pretty good weather most of the year. So we will take advantage of our outdoor learning spaces when the time comes. One of the challenges that we have is busing. A normal school bus that brings 35 kids to school can now only transport 14. So that emphasis has been placed at the elementary and middle school, which means that we have to be a little more flexible on our end when it comes to transportation. I've gotten a number of questions about, well, when the time comes to go to hybrid, first of all, how do you get there? And then second of all, what are my options as a parent, as a family, in terms of going to the hybrid and getting involved in that versus staying on remote schooling? The base understanding, as I understand it, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm pretty much just reading as much as I can, but I am not a doctor. I am not in the Monterey County Health Department. As I understand it, in order to be removed from the watch list, we must have a COVID case rate in the county of 100 per 100,000 residents, lower than that, for over a 2-week period of time. And if our positivity rate is above 8%, we stay on the watch list. So those are 2 numbers that we kind of keep track of. We also need to see, and this has not been as big a problem in our area as it is in larger areas, less than a 10% increase in hospitalization, and ICU bed availability needs to be under 20% or over 20%. So really for us, it's about the positivity rate and the cases per 100,000. And lately the numbers have been up from where we'd want them to be to do that. So we're not really in the position yet to be talking about a hybrid in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're looking at, again, that quarter mark as the first time we would legitimately probably have a chance, just based on how the math works. If we return from remote schooling, you will have the option to keep your child home on a distance learning model. And we're going to look at 2 different methods for this. If we have a critical mass of students in a grade level and in a subject matter that choose to stay home, we may transition and offer that course as an online option. So as an example, again, my ninth graders are both in AP Human Geography. If we have enough ninth graders who stay out in AP Human Geography, we would offer that as an online option to those students, as an online cohort. We also may have, if we have individual students who stay out, we may be able to manipulate the system and the structure so that that student could potentially stay in the class that they were in and stay on a distance learning model. We've investigated different potential programs or separate platforms and didn't feel that they rose to the level of rigor and expectation that we would want to be comfortable putting them on a platform of their own. Our first month of school is really going to be about stress testing our remote schooling model to make a determination of how much of that lives beyond into the hybrid model. So the first month is going to tell us a lot about the nature of our instruction. There are students who are exploring a non-CHS program of study, and my recommendation to those students, if you're a parent who says, I'm interested in taking my child over to MPC to take classes or an online program for the year, I would recommend that before you make that decision, you schedule an appointment with your counselor and an assistant principal to go over the process and what potentially the pitfalls are of moving on to a separate platform, because you lose certain opportunities for the school. First of all, if you are not enrolled at our school, you cannot participate in any outside programs. So no sports or clubs or any of the extracurricular programs that we would have. You would merely just be a student out in the world. And you want to make sure that the courses that you're taking will be received back if you choose to come back to us on our transcripts for the purposes of graduation. So it's not quite as simple as I'm going to go over and just take a bunch of college classes. They need to make sure they articulate to what we're offering. So my recommendation to parents who are interested in exploring this further is to schedule an appointment with a counselor and an assistant principal who can walk you through all of the different versions and make it a more individualized conversation. We believe, and I say this with 100% sincerity, we believe that our program that we're going to offer students is rich, robust, rigorous, and you will be seeing a major difference in what we saw in the spring. And that the process that we're going to use going forward will be an academic program that will make Carmel High School proud. I'm not going to go through all of the general safety precautions. You are more than welcome to read through the guidebook that we sent out or the actual plan we're submitting to the district. But a couple of highlights is, as it relates to parents, your access to campus in a hybrid model is going to be very limited. You're going to drop your kid off in the morning and pick them up. We're not going to be able to have you come onto campus to deliver food or any of those things. It's really going to be a safe and secure position. We are going to do temperature checks. We are going to do health screenings at the beginning of every day with your students, but it is imperative that you understand we are trying to put your children's safety and by extension your safety at the paramount of our conversation. Staff's going to go through and receive, when we get to this model, staff will go through and get training on cleaning methods and use of PPE and all these different kind of things. We're ordering face shields and barriers, and students will be required, if they are on campus in a hybrid model, to wear a mask during the instructional day, which we will provide one, but students will be able obviously to bring their own. A student who doesn't have a mask will be provided one. The student who chooses not to wear a mask will be asked to be picked up and taken home or brought a mask. No different than we would with any other situation. But we want our students to be safe, we want our parents to be safe, and we want our staff to be safe. This is a sample health screening that we're going to use with all of our students when they come in the morning. Within the last 14 days, have you been diagnosed or had a test confirming that you have the virus? Obviously, you would stay home. Do you live with somebody who has tested positive? Obviously, they would stay home. And do you exhibit a number of these symptoms? Here's where things are going to get tricky, and I want to be painfully, blatantly transparent with everybody. What's the difference between COVID and symptomatically? There's really very little difference between COVID displays and the flu. When we hit that, I'm not saying COVID is the flu, but what I'm saying is that they're symptomatically somewhat similar. And we're going to hit our flu season, which means that we're going to have a group of kids that are staying home under suspicion, and we're treating everything as if it is a COVID case, because that's the worst case scenario. For the school, we've gotten questions about what's the shutdown number for us? Like, when would we shut down the school? At a high school, because we're not cohorting students in a hybrid model, we're not keeping the kids all the way together all day, one positive case does not shut down the school. 5% is what the state of California has said. If you reach a 5% threshold of all people on campus, students and staff, that would be the shutdown point for the high school. So we'll monitor those numbers very closely. It is going to be a challenge because we don't have a ton of testing in this area, and those are some challenges we're trying to work through. What does a hybrid Monday through Thursday schedule look like? Well, it looks very similar to the experience that we ran in remote learning, a block schedule. The difference being is that these are not pure, so please don't take this as absolute truth, but right now, as it leans, students A through K would come to school on Monday, and then L through Z would come to school on Tuesday, and it would alternate. Then the next week it would flip. So the best way to think of it is that every other week you'll be on school either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. It'll be alternating weeks. And there's a full schedule I have a full breakdown of the year for when we get to that point. So parents, you'll know exactly what days your kids are supposed to be on campus and what days they're doing distance learning. And again, that's Monday through Thursday. You'll notice there's no lunch period here. We will be expanding a little bit here when we get to that point, a little bit of a break time, but students will basically be getting grab and go lunches through the cafeteria or eating in between passing periods. But the CDE recommendations are that there should not be long terms of time where kids are sitting down and collecting themselves. Our Friday hybrid schedule is a little bit different. We're still going to maintain our advocacy, but the idea behind our Friday schedule is we, again, wanted to be about connections and bringing kids together. So we changed the groupings a little bit. Advocacy in the 9th grade would still meet at 8:30 in the morning. Our 10th graders would come onto campus at 8:30 and go into office hours. And then at 9:40, they would switch. So again, my children are 9th graders. They would start their morning with their advocate, and then they could choose which office hours they wanted to go to. At 10:40, freshmen and sophomores will be asked to leave the campus, and we will then begin the process of cleaning for our afternoon, where our 11th and 12th graders will come onto campus at 1:15 to 3:30. The one difference with this schedule is that the block of time in the middle, the 10:45 to 12:45, is an opportunity for some of the programs that are practicum level courses that span multiple grade levels. Those students would be allowed to stay on site to meet as a group, to rehearse and do the work that they need to do. So my son Andy is a drama kid, and so he would have a special pass that for when they were doing rehearsals for performances would allow him to stay on campus after 10:40, or if they're a junior and senior, they could come onto campus early for those, but it keeps the groups very, very small. But that window of time is also for teacher PD, but you can see that things like choir, orchestra, band, drama, auto shop, dance, those programs that kind of need everybody in a room every once in a while would have an additional window of time to do the work that they need to do. Again, all of this is hybridized. So let's talk a minute about the beginning of school. We're wrapping up now, so I'm excited to hear some of your questions. So what is opening of school going to look like? Between August 7th and 12th, we will open school for students to come to school and pick up materials. So you'll notice on the right-hand side here that we've broken it down by grade. So on August 7th, 9th graders will come to school at a predetermined time, and we're going to do a drive-through delivery of materials. So you as parents are encouraged to come with your student and come on. There'll be stations for each subject matter, and you'll pick up the books for that station that you need, get a chance to wave at the teacher. We'll do our photo IDs, give out your Chromebooks if you're a 9th grader. The Link crew has a welcome packet a welcome bag, goodie bag that we're pretty excited about. And so on that day, all the freshmen would come, and then we would replicate that again for the sophomores on the 10th. On the 11th would be the juniors, and on the 12th would be the seniors. For our freshmen on August 12th in the afternoon, we'll have our 9th grade virtual orientation, and you'll be receiving information for that in your email about how to get access to Link Crew's system, and they're going to get you all set up with that. On August 13th will be our first day of class meetings, and that'll run all 7 periods and advocacy for a half hour each period. So that's kind of our welcome to school. Here's the syllabus. Let each teacher make sure that every kid's set up on their Google Classroom. And so that Friday, you see the schedule there. The class day would start at 8:30 and end at 2 o'clock. Oops, I'm sorry, back up for a second. And then on the 17th is when we begin our first block schedule day and our first opportunity to begin the process of instruction. I am throwing a lot of information at you, and I appreciate how hard it is to process things. And I really encourage you to spend some time with the document that I gave out at the beginning of, or yesterday as part of the email, as this details all of this information in great detail. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me, but I would really counsel you to begin working with Mr. Tuana if your letter is of your last name are A through K, or Ms. Puente if your last names are letter L through Z, and your counselors. Those are great resources, boots on the ground. They're usually far more articulate than I am. And so they're really a great resource to help you with the transition into high school. Having said all of that, and again, I apologize that was a long presentation. I am now going to open up the windows for the crack staff here to do our question and answer period, and we will try to do the best we can to answer as many questions as we can. So I'm ready to fire away.
The first one's going to be Brendan. I'm going to let you in, Brendan.
And I'm not hearing, Tricia, you're muted, so I can't hear you, or.
Brendan, are you there? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, Brendan.
Actually, Brendan isn't here. He's taking care of the dog, but I have a couple questions for him.
Okay, you got 90 seconds, so fire away.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So Brendan has a couple questions. He's a senior, obviously. Last semester, grades didn't count at all for part of the GPA. Is this semester going to count? And if not, why not? And I guess the second question is that he says there seems to be like there'll be a lot more work for counselors this year. So will our counselors be receiving extra help to allow time and accessibility for him and his senior peers in applying and helping, for basically applying for colleges?
Yeah, both fantastic questions. On the grades, yes, grades will count from this point forward. The decision on grades for the spring was, again, because we were kind of in this crisis point and we didn't really know what the long-term ramifications are. Moving forward, it's business as usual. These grades are going to count. The GPA, it's going to factor in that. It's going to be reported. You'll report it on your transcript as an actual grade. The credit, no credit option that we were offering in the spring is not available in that context anymore. There are we go back to kind of how things were run in the fall. The question about counseling support, yes, I think the counselors realize that they're going to have a coordinated approach, particularly to work with our seniors, because there's so much about the college application process we just don't know right now. The UCs and the CSUs are revamping their entire college process because the SAT is not being offered and the ACT isn't being offered. So first step is to learn as much as we can and then try to push out a lot of things through our counselors department, Ms. Hunt out of the College and Career Center, and then also just how much information can we get to our advocates, and so the senior advocates can also help answer questions as well. Okay, next question.
So Lyons family, you are up. If you'll unmute yourself, you can speak.
This better not
Hi.
This better not be my wife.
It's not. It's
Okay,
the other
good.
Lyons. We sometimes get your mail.
There you go.
So we've met you. I want to thank you. You know how much we adore you, and I understand the rigor of Carmel High. That's why we chose Carmel. We're huge advocates of Carmel and of you. But I think I've been trying to reach you now for 2 months. Just because we have 4 kids ourselves, it's simply impossible for us to work in the system. So my question is, how do we get an appointment? I've been emailing the counselor since June 12th. How do we get that appointment? And how is Carmel High School going to handle, you said you might not transfer all classes, even if they're WASC accredited, even if they're UC approved. And just so you know, pre-you, I know that was not the case. We had many friends who took Hebrew same language my daughter wants to take, and this is the year to take it because it's so easy to take it, since it's only offered at community colleges in the South. You would be the first principal who would not allow those classes to transfer if that's what you're saying. And if that's not what you're saying, and you are going to let those classes transfer, just tell me how I get an appointment. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying with the whole, like, outside of our universe is, I think it's really important, and I think part of the reason that we haven't been super clear is because we didn't really know what our process was going to be moving into the fall. I would recommend, like I said, counselors are on site next week. They'll start setting up appointments. Both Ms. Puente and Mr. Tuana are available and kind of walk through some of those specifics. I do apologize. I am a little behind on my email. Not quite 2 months, but I am a little behind on my email. And I'm trying to get caught up rapidly. But I would say that the reason we're having people do an individualized conversation is because there are so many different programs out there that claim certain things. And the best example I can give you is I have a lot of parents ask me, well, can I go take health at MPC? Health at the MPC is not the same as health at they don't have the same standards or the same requirements. So I would really, we're going to shove all those questions are going to get shoved at the top of the order for those appointments to try to help people make the decision about where they want to go. Because quite frankly, if a parent says that they don't want to take advantage of Carmel High, that's a spot that we can open for another universe to come in. So we want to make sure that we're respectful of that, and also offer the expectation that we do have, which is we have to offer high quality instruction. But a lot of it was just we didn't have the answer to give to people, and I didn't want to give misinformation and say this is what you can do, and then have it be wrong. And now we're scrambling back to something. So I hope that helps. Debbie, you wanted to add something to that?
Well, I just want to say that I guess Lyons family, I get to work with you. You are in my alpha, so please, when you're not getting responses, please connect with me. I'm happy to help you make connections. And when the counselors do come back, we'll be able to look at individual cases, things that occur. I think also take a look at the course catalog. That kind of outlines, gives a frame for, what we have at Carmel High, which is around expectations for graduation and courses that will connect, which is different from other schools. So know that it's fluid, and we will be able to help you out once the registrar and the counselors get back in.
And I think the other point I want to add before we get to the next question is, I have gotten a few questions about when our schedule is going to be posted, when will we find out about our classes. Our goal is to have those posted a couple of days in advance of pickup, obviously. And I'm not going to get into all the inside baseball regarding how to build a master schedule. Just know that I've built a bunch of them, and this was by far and away the hardest one to build because I basically had to gut it and start over in the first week of July. And usually I'm done the first week of April. So we're still building in many ways, trying to, again, give kids everything that they ask for. If a kid wanted yearbook, how can I make them get yearbook? Like, we don't want to cut a program if we can keep it. And that was my goal when I did it. So just bear with us, but we are going to try to get your schedules out so you can start having those conversations with counselors about changes that you might need to make.
Can I add really quick to the courses taken off campus? In our course catalog, it says students may supplement your high school experience by taking additional courses at MPC or additional universities. We may grant up to 10 credits for high school credit, so 3 college units. So you can kind of look at that. I'll put the link for the course catalog on the chat.
Thank you. Okay, I believe Michael is next.
Yes, Michael Lankine.
Lakened.
Okay.
Hi. I've got 3 questions. So as far as office hours goes, I see that we're required to have at least one, but for students that don't really need the time, wouldn't that be a waste of a teacher's time that they could be allocating towards a student that does need it? My second question is, you talked a lot about athletics and how those structures are going to be moving. I'm a big member of the theater community here, so what would that be looking like? And my third question is, it kind of feels like having everyone wear masks at school is saying in the fine print that it isn't safe enough to be at school at that point in time.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna try to knock those out in order. Okay, so the question about office hours, I think each teacher is going to define office hours in a number of ways. I'm going to apologize in advance if Mr. Palshaw is lurking somewhere in our conversation, but I know that Mr. Palshaw, as an example, does a number of individualized book conversations with kids. And so that may be where that lands, because the teachers aren't going to have as much time instructionally. And so some of those additional things that normally would take place maybe during a lunch period or during that time is going to get moved into office hours. So you're right. There may be students who take greater advantage of the individual time, and some of it may just be a check-in and another academic check-in. But at the start, to get us used to the idea that's available, we're going to require the attendance, because we are mandated by law to make sure that you get daily live instruction. So we want to make sure that we do that. So for the outset, the requirement's going to be that we require you to log into 1 office hours. Now, does that mean you can't go to, I have to, as a senior, does your office hours have to back up to your advocacy? No. Could it be first thing in the morning and you have a 2-hour break and then you come back? You can do it that way as well. But we do want to make sure that kids are meeting with teachers on a regular basis. Theater. I think theater is near and dear to my heart. Again, one of my children is a theater kid. Miss Paletti, who is going to be joining us again this year, is very excited to be running a theater program. Again, I think that's one of those that's going to look very different. We've already kind of had conversations about some creative ways we can do virtual theater productions, and down to doing something like this, where we have a live session where the performance happens and we're all attendees watching, and we can do that. And then we got to clap at the end. So theater is absolutely, and I think that extends to all of our performing arts programs. We don't want to abandon those. And I think that I have to give tremendous credit to those teachers who I have been talking to all summer about how they want to do things to keep kids engaged. To the last question quickly on the masks, we're following our guidance from the Monterey County Health Department, from the state of California, and obviously from whatever federal guidelines we get. So right now what they're saying is that masks, when worn by everyone, is an effective deterrent to the spread of the disease. We appreciate, though, that there are those that are nervous about being out in the world. I don't go out as much as I used to because I'm as scared as anybody else. So we want to make sure that when we get to that point, that we're not just saying everybody wears masks and there's 27 kids in a classroom. I think the classroom you knew, Michael, last year is going to look real different when you come back. I don't think you realize how much space is, when you take out half the desks, what that really feels like, and just how much space that creates, and how by taking half the kids off campus, even our campus, which is kind of small, seems cavernous when you talk about removing that many kids. So our hope is that we'll have a slow release of kids back onto the campus, and then at that point, we're in a better place to know more about this disease and how it transmits and how we can address it. And we would not put a student in a position that could cause harm if we were not 100% certain that the guidance we were getting was accurate.
I just want to say too on that, the hybrid model that we've created, that Mr. Lyons has put a lot of time into thinking through, and all of us have, is based on the information that we have currently. So when it's time for the hybrid to come into play, there will be new information. So it will not look exactly like what we have, because we'll be fluid based on what the state is recommending. So just keep that in mind. Tonight, we just wanted to give you some background information so you knew what to anticipate, given our situation now moving forward.
Yep. Okay, Juliet, I believe, is next. Juliet.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lyons. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer questions and be here. I'm really excited about the advocacy groups that you're talking about, that I think actually is a model that could extend beyond COVID. Mm-hmm. But I'm also anticipating some questions from my student about how big those advocacy groups are. Is there any choice in leader? Could you just give a little bit more detail on what those advocacy groups look like?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be, one of the things that's going to be interesting to watch with that is the ever-changing nature of what it can do. To start with it'll be assigned based on a common teacher that those students have and have. So, and it won't be more than 20 kids. The goal is to, again, to kind of keep it at a small number, and in some cases, maybe even smaller than that. But what I'm doing right now is looking at what every teacher's schedule is and trying to find a critical mass of that grade. And again, I don't know who's quite lurking out in the world, but I'll use Mr. Schreier because he's easy and on my brain. He's got a lot of ninth graders in his life, so he would most likely have the ninth grade advocate class because it connects to what he's doing in his real day. And really, it's a small group. Is there going to be opportunities, I think, over time to maybe mold and shape that in different directions? Yes, I do believe that over time it may grow into other things. Our beginning is to start very small with and not try to overshoot our goal here and just say, look, can we create a system that allows for people to just meet with each other and get some help if they need it? So that's kind of the beginnings of that process, and I think over time it will grow as we go. I'm excited about that. I really am. I think that it has the potential to be transformative in how we as adults work with students and how students get information from us. And it isn't quite as bureaucratic maybe as what we're used to having.
Byron is up next.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Lyons. Phoebe and I would like to thank you for all the information that you've given us and all your guys' hard work that you've gone through to actually get us to this point. I just have a few questions. I'll just read them off and you can just answer them that way.
Fire away.
With doctor's appointments, do we just get to the office and do like we typically would? Secondly, PE classes, will those be the same as they were in 8th grade coming in until like sports pick up and they get that study hall, hopefully in a hybrid setting? And thirdly, if there's if the scheduled classes are incorrect, do we just have our student reach out to the counselor to fix those issues?
Yeah, so in order, the doctor's appointment or I think the best way to look at this whole experience is we are trying to model school with the one caveat of that we're not all in the same building. So if you have a doctor's appointment and you need to excuse your student for that period, you would call the attendance office. Miss Barry, I promise you will be there to answer the phone, and Miss Waldman will be there. They are fired up and ready to go, and they very much want to talk to you all and help navigate this for you. And what they will probably do is get the information from you, and then they will let the teacher know that this student is not going to be online for that day, and it'll be marked as an excused absence, just like it would in the normal run of things. PE obviously was a huge challenge, I think, for those folks in 8th and 9th grade, because it's such an odd experience, right? It's so participatory in nature. But I am very excited about the work that Ms. French and Mr. Johnston have done over the summer to kind of get them up and running with live Zoom workouts and all that stuff. The study hall question, I think, is an open question, to be quite honest. I don't know if I have a pure answer for that yet, because we just don't know the nature of sports yet. And I don't want to commit to, yes, study hall will exist without, yes, sports existing. So is there a version of this where 9th graders stay in PE for the year? Quite frankly, yes, that's true. But if we're back into that study hall model, or back into that hybrid model, could we look at that point, looking at study hall again? That's a potential, but I don't want to give a definitive because I just don't know all the variables. And then the last question, I didn't write down. So I forgot the last question. Debbie or Craig, did you guys catch the last question? I didn't catch the last question.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
I'm a failure. I'm sorry.
I didn't write it down either.
I didn't, but I think what he was asking is who do they contact
Oh, yes.
about schedules?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, same model as normal. The school year will open. Kids can make schedule changes. In most cases, that's just going to be an email to their teacher, to their counselor, who will then make that change. The window will probably be a little bit longer than what we normally do. Usually we do 10 days, but it'll be a little bit longer because kids are going to have to get to know what that class looks like. There are some that have gone through some pretty major upheavals. So the process will be the same in terms of emailing your counselor, and then they'll make the changes as it would normally. So yeah, that process doesn't change. Sorry. I'll get better about writing things down. Our next person, do we have another human being? I see the next
So the next up is Steve Henderson. However, Steve, it appears that you have an older version of Zoom. and it is not allowing me to allow you to push to talk. It's asking me something else. Is there another option for you to log into a newer version of Zoom or that and come back? After Steve Henderson, we have Shelley Lambert, and we'll work on back in.
Okay.
Yeah, another option could be to chat.
Post the question in the chat for his purposes only, because we want to make sure we get it. Shelby Lambert, I feel like I'm one of those like.
Hello, it's Rory, not my mom, but yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I was wondering about when you talk about the advocacy program, what kinds of things will the different teachers be doing at that program, and how will so what kinds of things will be happening at that program for various classes?
Yeah, I think again, I want to stress that this is very much a work in progress. That I think teachers are going to manipulate it and mold it based on the group, and you know, they'll have a kind of a different way of doing things. I think we lost Craig. Depending on their environment and their comfort. You know, some may do more of bulk group sessions where we're all on. Some may decide to do one-on-one appointments, vary it up. It's designed to be somewhat low key because we don't want to add the stress to a student or a teacher of another thing you've got to worry about. It's more about the kind of the connectivity of, here are other people who I can talk to who are my same situation. And so I think it's going to morph over the next few weeks as we launch it. And quite frankly, I think kids will start to, or students will start to put input into it and saying, can we do it this way? Or can we try this? I think it's really got the opportunity to be a collaborative experience. I did get an update from our counseling department. There will be a Google form that will go out for schedule changes. So hold off on the mass emails to the counseling department. We will have a Google form that we'll send out that you can make your changes on. So I'm getting live conversation there. And obviously we also want to remember that with the exception of the high school principal, everybody was pretty much off for the summer. So it takes us a while to get back to you. We're getting caught up on our email. But we all took a little downtime. I did spend Thursday and Friday watching baseball. But beyond that, we've been pretty good, but it will take us a while to get caught up on our email, but the Google form will come very quickly to indicate how you can make schedule changes. Okay. Stepping back to, did Steve get his question into the hopper here?
No, we're waiting for him to reconnect. I'm working on that. So we're going to go with Christina Kochevar.
Okay.
Kochevar?
Christina,
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this and for all the hard work that's gone into figuring this mess out. One thing I haven't heard, you know, the high school has such a rich club community that really would be amazing to figure out digitally to help with the social engagement for our high schoolers. What's happening with that, and what's the plan going forward, especially for some of the key clubs that have been operating all summer, like this Club Saves Lives?
You bet. I think what we're doing right now is, I think you'll notice in the schedule, one of the byproducts of the way the day works out is the academic day on 3 days of that week ends earlier than what kids are normally used to. So in conversations with Ms. Powers, who's our ASB advisor, I talked with ASB over the summer about how do we find ways to engage the kids in fun, kind of interesting things, but also I think the club world is probably going to migrate its way to those empty blocks of time that would normally be lunch times or normally be those windows of time. And we want to make sure, I think, when we get to the club part of the world, which traditionally doesn't get fired up until the third week of school, we may find that there are some opportunities during our day, whether it's during the lunch period or during the after school on Monday and Wednesday, for kids to still have those. I do credit a lot of our clubs for all the hard work that they're doing over the summer. ASB has been phenomenal. They've been meeting all summer and they are firing away on lots of interesting ways to try to keep kids connected to each other. That is going to be the great challenge that we have this year. I'm not worried. Well, everything worries me, but I'm not overly worried about the academic side because I think we've got the best teaching staff in anywhere. I'll put my staff up, not my staff, our staff up against anybody. I think they've got the academics locked in. We need to spend a lot of time on the social connectedness because that's what's missing. Those 5-minute conversations in the hallway between periods, those lunchtime hangouts. We're going to try to recreate those in the aggregate over the next kind of month or so. I think we're going to learn a lot about what kids can do and what they're capable of when given freedom to start dealing with some of these things in a creative fashion. And empowerment. I think what really is, I think, exciting when I read a lot of the things that I read is how this universe, while it is not ideal, has the opportunity to give kids a connection in a different fashion. And it may open up doors for kids that wouldn't have normally been there. But we're not abandoning clubs. We're not saying we're not going to use them. Right now, our mission is to get the academics up and running, and then we'll fold in the social and the connectedness as we go through the month of September and or into October. How are we doing?
Okay, so we're gonna use Tracy Henderson for Steve. So it could be either Tracy or Steve. And then I just want to give you a time check. It's 7:14, and we do have about after Tracy, and then we'll have 6 other questions already.
Okay, that's Trisha's way of telling me to say fewer words, politely. Anyway, all right, Tracy.
Can you hear me, Principal Lyons?
Yes, we can. Welcome aboard.
You might remember me from the Carmel Fiesta. I came in and begged to put a sign on. Everybody's dotting their I's and crossing their T's with this cleanliness. From my perspective, I think it's an overreaction. But, I don't hear anything, including on the, the superintendent district level, about the social emotional. And I was really impressed with you and Principal Peterson, acknowledging that that's a concern. I mean, in our family, my daughter's 14 and they took away her sports, her friends, and her school. And it was not a good time in COVID. We did not enjoy it. The suicide rates are up. And so, my main concern is the statistics are in, the kids are not super spreaders. There's no teenagers that have died. I understand you're mandated by the state to do these things, but how are we going to deal with the bullying that's going to happen if somebody has a medical condition and can't wear a mask? I mean, the adults are bullying at this pace. So I'm really interested in your approach to the social, emotional, and taking care of our kids' emotional needs.
Right.
How that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right on with we don't know what every individual situation is in every house, and we don't know what that person's extended family looks like or what their challenge lies ahead for them. And I think compassion and understanding, things that we've quite frankly been preaching all year last year with things like our Breaking Down the Walls program and our Start with Hello, trying to get kids to understand that you just don't know what's going on in that other person's life at that moment. And that we're really hoping that by bringing some organization and structure, but also having areas of intervention where we can reach out to kids when we find out they're struggling through, and Debbie, maybe this is a good place to talk a little about kind of that layers of intervention that we've talked a little bit about, but how do we grab those kids when they're starting to fall away, and how do we bring them back into the conversation? We were so disjointed in the spring because there was no common vocabulary of class goes from here to here and this is due this day. Everybody was kind of on their own. And that sense of isolation was felt all the way down. It was felt in us too. Like I'm a social creature, and I haven't been in a room with more than 2 other adults in like 6 months. And, that's weird to me. So we've got to find ways to do that. We're putting a lot of faith in this advocacy program that we're building to do some of that heavy lifting, but also how do we deploy our support staff and our counseling teams and all that can bring about that extra layer of support and make sure that kids don't feel outside or ostracized. And when we do get to that hybrid experience, just that kind of general understanding that, look, you just don't know what's going on with that other person. And let's just show a moment of compassion because we're all going through this experience together for the first time. And we're all going to learn every day something different think about what we know now compared to what we knew when we went out of for the end of the school year back in June. We know so much more, and so much more about what the impact of this is going to have long term.
Yeah, I think that, we'll have layers of support for students depending on what students' needs are. And it all starts, in the classroom with teachers, but also with parents letting us know what their concerns are. And from there, we will pull the people together that we need to put our heads together to determine what will be best, how we can best support, because every situation is different, whether it's academic, whether it's social emotional, whether it's behavioral, and we want to support, and we will support via the teachers on the feet on the ground, seeing what's going on, parents, what's going on, then bringing it up to our counselors as well, who will then follow up with some support staff that will also be able to do that. And then we'll move on from there. So our goal is to support as much as possible as students start falling between the cracks in whatever way.
Josie Brown is up next. You can go ahead now and unmute yourself. Sorry, Josie, I had to mute you.
That's okay.
Hi, Josie.
Hi. I just wanted to revisit the grades that were received in the final semester in the spring.
Sure.
The kids had the option to be graded or take credit, no credit, and my child chose to be graded to show improvement. And so I just want to clarify if those do not, or if they do factor into his GPA. And then also back to absences. Mm-hmm. Will the teachers be recording their Zoom sessions to post later, similar to how you guys do these town halls and then post them on YouTube for those that are absent, or even if students would like to rewatch if they need clarification on what they heard that day during instruction?
So let me start with the GPA or the grade question, and then I'll get to the absences and the recording. So again, to kind of revisit that last semester, the guidance from the state of California was that we were to hold harmless any student who potentially chose not to go with a graded option. So for the purposes of GPA, second semester spring of 2020 does not factor into their overall GPA calculation. The grades are on the transcript, and you can report them when you apply to college, but when we calculate GPAs, we will recalculate minus that semester. And that was under the guidance of what we got from the state of California. As far as recording, and I'll be honest, this is part of our conversation we're having at the teaching level next week when our teachers start to work around, is the pros and cons of having all your Zooms recorded it takes away from the expectation that you have to attend in real time. In the same way that if you didn't come to school, for a day, you wouldn't be able to record that lecture or recapture that material. But I take the point that there might be some students who want to revisit that material. And that's where I would say that the opportunity for use of office hours will become important for those students to go back and access their teacher. Hey, you said this on Wednesday, can you revisit this on Friday? Which is not traditionally something we've built into our normal course of study, is that kind of reteaching experience. So I would say at the beginning, we will probably not be doing live recordings of Zooms, purely because we want kids to be in attendance, and we don't want kids to start setting their own academic schedule very much like they did in the spring, based on all of our research. We want kids to show up and be a part of that. But I'm sure that, and also if we have students who find themselves in a 504 or an IEP situation, we may need to have access to that archive for students who need that level of support. So I think it's going to be kind of a work in progress for the first couple of weeks on how much we record and release live Zoom conversations for that purpose, because we want to make sure that first and foremost kids show up to school on time, engaged in the learning at the time that we want to extend that learning. And then we can kind of maybe slow release them out to kids who maybe need them for accommodations or additional support in a controlled environment.
Okay, so up next is Vivi Fenwick.
Hi, Vivi.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I'm having enough trouble deciding how to manage things with my two kids, so I appreciate all you and your staff are doing to manage the 800 plus that you have and taking care of them academically, emotionally, and socially. I have 3 questions. I think they're pretty simple though. So with the office hours, they have to show up, but do they have to participate for a certain amount of time to basically get credit for being there?
Right.
And then for the classroom time that they have Monday through Thursday, are those class sizes the same as they would be in the hybrid situation? I think part of the concern is, what if someone is not noted as attending, but they were? So how is that being tracked? And then if they have technical issues getting into the classroom, who do they reach out to?
Okay, so in order, the office hours, I think that and again, I want to preface by a lot of what I say is that while I am trying to project as much like we got it, there are some things that are just going to be works in progress. And I think that to say to a student, you have to stay for a full hour if you don't necessarily need that full hour is probably ends up wasting, I think to Michael's comment earlier, does that turn into a waste of time that I'm just sitting on a Zoom when I really shouldn't be? I would hope, and I'm confident that the teachers will find rich and engaging ways to utilize office hours, not just as a get caught up on your homework experience, but as an enrichment or an enhancement, a way to get more information. Because the key thing to remember in this schedule is it's a truncated experience Monday through Thursday. A lot of the work that would have been done in class may get partitioned out into time beyond the class period. And so that Friday will become important for kids to capture material that maybe they would have normally got in a 245-minute week course of study. Now they only get 180 minutes with that teacher. So that's part of it. So I would definitely counsel students to plot with the idea that you're going to have that hour and you may take more if you need it. On the class sizes for remote schooling, the class sizes would be the classes in combination of the two hybrid cohorts. So as an example, if I'm teaching integrated math 1, period 1, I have 25 kids split in half when I go to hybrid, but right now it's one class, which is a typical class that we have right now in school. And as such, when we say the live component of this, when we say that we're recommending to teachers or we're asking teachers to go for at least 30 minutes, the key emphasis there is at least, right? That I've talked to a bunch of teachers so far about how they're planning their universe, and it's feeling more and more like what'll happen is it may not be just a 30-minute contained experience. It may be broken up over time where it's like you go in and come back out as you need, as they determine their day, and not every day is going to look the same. And obviously tech issues are a huge issue. We are blessed with Miss Fausti, who is amazing at helping kids, and Mr. Matheson, who is phenomenal about, getting kids support. Teachers are available. And again, the other thing is, the other weaponry that you've got is that there's a whole element of support staff that are going to be available by phone. So, you're not going to be in the window that you used to be all by yourself, that you can pick up the phone and call and, someone will answer your question on campus. We have these amazing new phone systems that forward all my calls. It's wonderful. I don't have to be in my office to get phone calls. So I think having those opportunities, but students will still have the opportunity to use the resources of Ms. Fausti and Mr. Matheson and the other tech support folks that are on campus. And look, if they're not able to get in, then they would have to work with the teacher to kind of work through that as an absence, as you would with anything else. But yeah, we're going to continue to have those support networks in place.
Can I add one thing? I think as far as like the tech issues, I think we'll come up with protocols too. Like if you can't log into Zoom, just to email the teacher right away to give them a heads up. Like just little simple things like that to help with the process for accountability and for the teacher to be aware.
Okay, we have 4 questions left. We're on our last 4 questions, so we're coming to the home stretch. So Debbie, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something else?
I just was going to say we have a help ticket system as well that we have used and will continue to use.
Yes. Okay, next.
Parker, you can unmute yourself right now and ask. And then after that, we'll have Kevin, Sari, Kim, and T. Cliff. Those will be our last ones.
Oh, I think I know who T. Cliff is.
Hi, this is Parker. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Go right ahead.
Great. I was just wanted to feel what your thoughts were about home campus sharing. For instance, if a student or two wants to come over for the day because their parents don't want to leave them alone for whatever reason, how do you feel about having students get together during the day in a home setting where they are at school together and they can experience lunch together and small breaks and have a little bit of socialization.
Yeah, right now we're really bound by the fact that we just can't bring kids onto site, that there just isn't a conversation about bringing our students onto campus because we're under the orders of the Monterey County Health Department. What I would say though is that, you know, I'm always wary about kids cohabitating together, particularly, and I know they're doing it. I don't want to be naive or Pollyanna and say, no, all of our kids are totally separate. I see kids, you know, all the way running up and down, you know, the streets as friends. And there's only so many things I can control. I can control what happens on our school site. And while I would love to have kids, no one would love to have school more than me. No one. Like, trust me. My family is sick of me. They want me out of the house. They want me back at work. And so when we get to that point, I want to do it in a safe and responsible manner. If we jump the gun and start playing loose with the rules, it's only going to set us back. And so in fact, when I was talking to ASB earlier this last week, I said, if we all do our part for this time, this first quarter, and we all really stick to it, I think we're going to find our way out of this. But we've got to do our part now. Otherwise, we're all going to continue to pay down the road. And it just prolongs that. And we get into a very dangerous place where we do lose the things we so desperately want. Sports, clubs, all that fun stuff goes out the window because that's what's missing when you come to campus. So as much as I would love to bring kids together, even in a socially distant, right, we're all going to sit on the football field 20 yards apart, I just don't want to risk it. And I don't want to be in a position where I just don't know enough to say this is what we should do. I do know I can keep them safe by keeping them home right now. And that's my best way forward for the health of everyone. And that's not just the kids, that's the adults and the parents as well.
Okay, so we had a couple put their hand down. So our last two are going to be Kevin Mahoney and Sari Rasmussen.
Awesome.
Welcome. Thank you. Mr. Lyons, thank you very much to you and your staff for all the hard work. This has obviously been quite an undertaking. You mentioned that the first introductory classes are on August 13th, correct, and that the first full classes are on August 17th. Is anything happening Friday, August 14th?
No, it's already been a contractually agreed upon day off because it was supposed to be we usually take the car week Friday off because it's almost impossible to get in and out of Carmel. And we had talked at one point about changing the schedule around or adding that as an instructional day. But really we wanted to give teachers every fighting chance to get ready for that 17th to be the first. We are very aware that we've got to get this right out of the gate. That we don't have the luxury of being mishandled or having it go wrong. So we just decided that as a district to not put that as an instructional day, give them one more. Now they've met the kids, you know, and now we can have the weekend to kind of get our heads around it. So right now it's staying off as the 14th. We are bringing our teachers on a couple of days early and changing a couple of our half PD days to days off to give them more prep time. Prep time is going to be at a premium for our teachers in real time because they're learning new skills and new ways of doing things. I have never run a meeting like this before. This is insane to me. And so we're all learning new ways to do things. So right now we're leaving the 14th as an empty day with the first day of block schedule instruction on the 17th and the 13th being the meet and greet day.
Okay.
So we have Sari in.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
We can, go right ahead.
Okay, great. Hi, and thank you again so much. I'll just make it really quick. I know I'm the last one. 2 quick questions for you. The first one was about the idea of creating some type of student orientation packet, because even students in college and graduate level work, to be in charge of your own schedule and to be able to be an online student is so different. So I was wondering if there was some type of orientation around that and to include a sort of test of how to submit things to a teacher. Because I know there's different things and teachers have their own supported systems of how to submit homework and things like that. But the idea of like, well, let's just do a test so that you know you're doing it correctly and that I received it correctly. The second quick question was around screen time. Of course, in the online model, we have to have screen time.
Yeah.
But is there anything that we can do to help our kids at home, including like maybe purchasing blue light glasses, or if that's something that when you issue a laptop to someone, can we, in addition, issue some type of screen protector because the headaches and the physical strain on screen time? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So in regards to orientation, I think a lot of the work that the teachers are going to do individually with students on that 13th is going to be a lot of testing. You know, I can see a lot of teachers I've talked to have talked about an introductory assignment that everybody turns in and they can watch to make sure the kids turn it in correctly. We know that, I think we've made some assumptions about kids and technology that, you know, while they're very technologically savvy, not always in the, you know, office sense of the word. I've got two wonderful children at home who are aces at video games but can't type. So we've got some definite needs there. So I think the first couple of days, what you're probably going to see is a lot of those types of things where it's, hey, let's all turn this assignment in now and see where we go from there. And we kind of ed tech it out. And then there'll obviously be some guidance, particularly around our freshmen with that kind of, how do we help them navigate a new world with new people that they've never met before. Screen time is a huge issue. I think it's an issue, quite frankly, for all of us. I mean, we're all spending a heck of a lot more time in front of a computer than we were. The blue light glasses are great. Those blue filters are strong to get. I think those are good. One of the things I also want to say is that the 90 minutes of class time doesn't necessarily mean there's 90 minutes of them sitting in front of their computer interacting live. It could be, you know, work that they're doing by hand, you know, out of a book that they're then going to take a picture of and send to the teacher. It could be old fashioned that way. And so I think we're very cognizant of how much time, we don't want to go overboard. And I think that's the other reason we tried to truncate the week in terms of the amount of time that they're on online, and not go with it's required for 90 minutes. It's like 30-minute, chop it up, you know, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here. It could even be a daily schedule to give kids those mental breaks. And I would really counsel, as you're beginning to plan your lives at home, those 15-minute breaks in between classes and that half-hour lunch, that's a great time for the kid to unplug completely and be like, oh, I'm just going to eat lunch and I'm going to stare at the outside world, or I'm going to go listen to the birds. And, you know, like, use those break times. I know I'm having to do that a lot. I sit a lot more than I used to. As Lisa will attend, she can actually find me because I'm in my chair usually and not running around. So I think that we need to be cognizant of what kids are dealing with, not just from a screen perspective, but just in a sedentary place. So, you know, giving those breaks as a family to like, hey, let's all take a walk right now. This is a great time. I'm in between meetings myself. Why don't we all jump around and go outside for a few minutes and come back? Like, I think that those opportunities are great. We have Rita, who's, I think, our official last question. Rita snuck in at the very end. And then I want to go back to Parker's question because I may have misunderstood it. So Rita, go ahead. Did we lose Rita?
Rita, if you can unmute yourself to ask your question.
Well, maybe while Rita's trying to figure that part out, let me go back real quick to Parker, because I apologize, Parker, I misunderstood your question. What Parker was trying to ask was, what would be the feeling about kids cohorting themselves in a common space off campus to work together? My best advice is it's not recommended because you're not living with these people as cohorting. But I also know that that's going to happen. I can't stop it. I can't say, you know, there'll be any sort of problem, or I'm not going to discipline it. I'm not, you know, none of us are going to be running around town going, wow, it's interesting that you guys are in the same place at the same time. It's really you as a parent making that decision, what you as a family are comfortable with, who you're spending your time with as far as a cohort. I know I've seen all kinds of pictures of block parties, and, you know, we're all in the same area, so it's all okay. I don't know enough about the medicine of this to be able to say this is what you should or shouldn't do. I think you do your own research, you make your determinations as what's best for you. We're here to support you academically and make sure that you have what you need in that environment. But I also know there's some realities at play here that, you know, high school, we're blessed, right? Our kids, for the most part, can operate independently of each other, or independent of us even in most cases. but I know we're also a little nervous sometimes about leaving our kids at home by themselves. So I'm going to leave that to you as individual parents to make that decision. I'm not going to make an edict one way or the other. I'm just going to say the guidance tells us that it's probably not recommended, but I can't say I'm going to discipline it or I'm going to deal with it in any way, shape, or form. Rita, are we back? We're back with Rita.
Yes.
Hi, Rita.
Hi, John. Okay, I have a quick question. Have you guys thought about using the theater or the gym and holding like college style lectures? I have 2 kids in college right now. One's at UCLA, one's at USC, and they're doing just a lot of the pre-recorded, lectures, and then they do the breakout sessions, I guess discussion groups with 10 to 15 kids. Have we thought about doing something like that? Like just maybe like a GoPro, like college style in the theater, pre-recorded, and then, Mr. Stryer would do 4 or 5, I don't know how many, just like 10-person, discussion groups.
It's interesting you bring that up, Rita, because I do think that over time, we, even in a hybridized environment, we may start playing a little bit with the structure of how class is done. Do I want to jump into that day one, week one of the school year where I don't really know what I'm getting myself into? Probably not. I'd like to get off the ground with basic instruction and then we can start to experiment. Would I be lying if Mr. Schreier and I haven't had that conversation? We have. We've talked about what would that look like, particularly if the long-term goal of our school really is to mimic the transition from high school to college. Wouldn't it be fantastic if at some point seniors got that experience now so that they knew what that looked like their freshmen when they go to, freshman history 101 and they're sitting in a cavernous theater with 200 other kids. I think there's possibility there. I don't want to commit to it today because I think our mission right now is to get off the ground. But down the road, do we get to experiment a little bit? Yeah. I mean, as a closing thought, I think and I'll let Craig and Debbie speak as well on this or anything. I'm looking at this as a really interesting opportunity. Like at some point I have to get past I wrote this in the Sandpiper when everything went south on us. And I wrote an op-ed that basically said, yeah, this sucks. This is a terrible experience. I have to get past that. And I think we as a community have to start looking at what's possible here and what we can do to still offer great experiences to our kids just in a slightly different way. And then the day will come where we're all going to be back on campus. And we will have learned so much about ourselves at that point as educators, as students, as a community, as what we're capable of if we just kind of turn the corner and go, it sucked, but it doesn't anymore. And we're going to get better. And what you're going to see in the fall is going to hopefully be that. It's going to be something that while it may not look like Carmel High School, it's going to feel like Carmel High School. And I want to let Craig and Debbie, if there's anything I didn't cover or anything else that we need to deal, and then I'll wrap everything up.
I just want to say thank you for the time. Thank you for devoting these last couple hours or this last hour or so to us. And I really too look forward to the year and the excitement that comes with beginning school and the opportunity, as Mr. Lyons said. I really think that it's some opportunity that we have and look at it in that positive way.
Yeah, just say thanks for being patient with everything changing so rapidly in this environment. It's just it's a really interesting time. We're looking forward to the school year, and I just reiterate, if you guys do have any questions, please email us, and we're more than happy to get back to you and help you walk through it, because we still know even after this, there's probably some anxiety or questions that you guys still please reach out.
Yeah, the last thing I would say is that our goal as a collective is to try to make sure that school walks and talks normal. And I think while it may be hokey, there are things that we can still do. My wife and I were having this conversation about the first day of school and taking the picture of the first day of school and posting it online and getting new clothes for the first day of school and all the trappings that come with those silly first day of school experiences. I think it's important that we as families mimic that and engage our kids as if that is, the countdown till the first day begins and all of that, and get that energy and that excitement. If we bring that forward, the kids will come with us. And I think that they will engage in a way that's positive. And And we really want that to be a great experience. And then when we get to the hybridized experience, it's another growth opportunity. And we will do another version of this when we get ready to launch hybrid, because I'm sure we didn't touch on a lot of those moving parts. And so we will address that down the road. But I echo what Craig and Debbie said. I appreciate everybody taking their time, listening to us prattle on about all this stuff. We hope we've answered all your questions. Please email us everything that if you didn't think about it and you're like, whoa, I didn't think about that, I need to send an email. All three of us are ready to go. And we will be running some parent academy classes over the course of the first semester for those of you that maybe are a little techno scared and need some help and need that kind of support. We're going to be offering parent academies. And we're also going to be doing some new student and new teacher or new parent orientations down the road too. So if you're one of our new parents who is new to our universe, we're setting up some times for you as well, because we want you to be a part of our community. And we hope that everybody gets what they need to be successful. So again, thank you to Trisha and Lisa and Michelle and Rob and everybody for putting this on. And thank you all for paying attention. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.